but I still can't pay though. But I got just enough to get off in.
Perfect timing. I work my ass off and I don't get paid enough. That's very simple. I don't know if that was set up in the back. But so following Joanna and Lori, tough task for us. But what we're going to do is hopefully build on and add and get a little more personal talking with Raef here in the PGA Tour around how they have evolved. And so full transparency, Raef and the PGA Tour, we're proud to have been our first client when we reopened our doors back in early 2014, doing a quick little project, and then we've helping out in sales and operations. So we know a little bit more than your standard interviewer here in terms of how we'll ask all the questions to talk about the transitions you've been going through. So with a visual here, we want to frame it under how to make sure the acronym PMP doesn't turn into private marketplace pain for folks. And we've got a list here, but before we dive into kind of the checklist, give us a little bit of background around how long you've been at it, because you were part of the original Programmatic Publishers Club with a bunch of us a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, it seems like it was yesterday, but yeah, we got into it. The PGA Tour, we were with Turner for about 7 years with them operating our back-end systems, and we left the company confines of Joey Trotz and took it on our own. And when we did that, we knew that part of what we were discussing in the early days of the programmatic was just definition, like what does it mean? And for us, it was kind of both. It was automation and it was remnant. Like our situation is we've got about 50% of our inventory is international. We have a 70% sell-through rate domestically, and it flips internationally where we're 30% sold. So
the 70% sell-through rate, that's through insertion orders with
that's
the
direct
quote-unquote direct team,
direct
tied
team.
With a lot of sponsorships. Any golf fans like me, you're seeing large
FedEx,
global
MasterCard,
sponsorships.
Rolex, yeah, and so that's
Small
so
companies,
for domestically, my interest in programmatic was all around automation and how do we get from where we were then to programmatic direct, where we can right now these conferences on programmatic, and I still end up going back and we're executing data dumb deals at large scale for huge publishers, for huge agencies that are representing our partners. And I'm like, this ultimately just doesn't work. And so there's
seems like a disconnect. Right?
No, and they're starting to want to engage. So Quicken Loans was one that was like, hey, how do we start to execute to where we can deliver? The gentleman from Turner was talking about earlier about we want to use direct campaigns. We want to be able to deliver different creative, and using programmatic pipes to do that was my interest domestically. We turned on remnant pipes, and there's been some nice revenue that's come through, so I'm not complaining. And then it's flip internationally, where how do we take advantage where we don't scale our sales teams? We have some representation in London and Toronto, but outside of that, it's being unmonetized. So how do we execute programmatic and or PMPs to help fill that void?
So let's talk about the teams more specifically. So take us through the mindset. And again, this isn't to talk good, bad, or ugly about folks that aren't here or that folks are kicking butt doing certain things, but what's the mindset of a classic PGA Tour, someone that is doing 8-figure deals with global brands? And do you even have them focus on this revenue channel at all?
Not really. We've built out, we have a yield team. His name is Andrew.
Yeah.
And
he's a good guy.
Yeah.
We were joking backstage, you throw him candy twice a day,
right.
kind of thing.
So
keep him going in a cave.
He's amazing, but he's one person, and so trying to our direct sellers, for the most part, don't have a lot of understanding in this space. They're they're working with large corporate partners, golf endemics, which haven't been exploring this space as much as I thought they would have, and so it's really been on ops. It's as we also discussed the evolution of programmatic back in the day, and it starts with ops. It's kind of still with ops, and we have a new head of digital sales that's in New York now. He's got some experience in that, so we're starting to turn the corner a little bit. But by no means do we have the horsepower to start to really embrace this space and take advantage of what.
So if you had the classic original 3 and now 4 stages at the IB white paper, remember when we wrote that? So you're like stage 1.5 kind of ish right now.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's jump to the inventory. You touched a little bit on that right now. Is everything that could be on exchanges there?
For the most part, the only thing we've held back is some of the large scale high impact units, so 970 by 250s. And really, we would be fine with that from a PMP side, but because we haven't had boots on the ground until working with you guys, is I didn't want to open that up to just anybody.
Random open auction. Oh, great! I'll bid
Because
$2
I get
for
enough.
something
What I have to
awesome.
fight is I have to fight the creative issue, and we have pretty extensive blocking and tackling in place. Google's been really supportive in that, but it's still you're still getting if you're allowing in text ads, you're allowing in text, and it can even be relevant and contextual, but it's still text ads, and it doesn't represent how we would want in the best interest of our site to look like from a brand perspective. So we've shied away from the huge high impact banners, but video, we are in the Google Partner Select program. We're monetizing most of our unsold video.
Yep.
But yeah.
So it's mostly available.
But but homepage, leaderboard, like top, we're not relegating it to some corner of the site.
And again, with the mix of open versus private today, like 80-20, that's about the US average today, right?
Yeah.
Your open rate, again, we don't need to quote, but let's say higher than $1 a holler, which is kind of the bar
it is much higher
where it's
than
inching
$1.
up. Yeah,
Yeah,
doing all right.
yeah.
So folks are figuring you out. Cool. So let's talk about the data then. You talked about kind of data poor or data dumb deals. Tell us about the type of transaction, a little more around a classic insertion order sponsorship, and then where some parallels can be made to get that set up. And it's still relatively early in terms of getting the pipes filled, right?
Yeah, I mean, our site is already kind of cold down. I'm assuming the advertisers feel like they're kind of fishing a stock pond. They know, but still we have, there's still a spectrum of the type of people who are coming to our site. So the ability to deliver different messaging, we're just not executing on a direct side. Conversely, you have people that are spending, annually, $1.80 with us, hyper targeted, like strategic strike on exactly who they want. And so to try and port some of that data capability over to direct deals is also what I'm doing. So PMP, to start to move from one to many back to our model one to many to one to few, and having, and it's interesting that also hearing that over the course of this conference from the buy side that they're wanting to move from many to few. And so we've taken radical steps relative to how we serve ads with smart ad loading. Our viewability scores have skyrocketed, our performance on our site, and so now starting to, which called out a lot of the bad inventory in terms of unseen, unviewable impressions.
Yep.
And so start to move to, closer and closer to one-to-one type relationships.
You seeing price deltas in either open, kind of people reacting to the higher viewability scores and then bidding knowing that it's better?
It did. It was weird. Yeah. We did it for the direct deals. I mean, we have we have direct partners that were kind of shrugging their shoulders, like, what's going on? It wasn't even about viewability. It was about performance, because just the historic way our site was set up and how we were delivering ads on a leaderboard that was 140 players long.
Yeah.
So when we did those fixes for the direct side, interestingly, like the yield shot up programmatically, as I'm assuming people are targeting based on performance. So.
Yep. Cool. So we'll get to the buyers in a second. Let's talk about the tech first. So you name dropped a couple of key partners there. How is that ecosystem lining up? Are you seeing some either consolidation where you're able to work with fewer partners that can plug many holes and have features that translate into real benefits, or is it the other way where you're seeing newer entries come in saying, oh, that's a solve and fills a gap for me, so it's worth the effort on there?
Right now we've had tons of conversations and haven't been able to act on a lot of them, which is another piece of what we're exploring around how do we
resource constraint.
Resource constraint, because we know there's opportunities. Like if Alex from Index has to have one more conversation with me, he's going to pull his hair out, and he's got the best hair in ad tech.
Sure.
So we don't want that. But
he's a good-looking man.
He's a good-looking man.
Yeah. It's true. We're transparent here.
So there are people that we want to. I mean, 10% of our global consumption happens in Canada, and we want to be able to execute on that, and we want to be able to do stuff, but we just haven't had. So every time we get conversations started, then right when we were about to go, then they started to move to the header tag solution, and at first it was pretty dev complicated, and it goes into our backlog of, I'm sorry, we have these other things we've got to address first. Now they've gotten some efficiencies out of that, so wanting to kick back and explore, as well as some of the other,
So for the 140 others in the room that want to pitch you, and the 300 others probably watching on live streaming, what are some of the other things that you're getting through, just so people know when to be patient and kind of how you set your priorities of what's been most important? Has it been just a straight yield, and kind of where can we get the most squeeze out of the juice, or are there other more strategic reasons that kind of have folks go to the head of the class?
I mean, I think you know, the conversations that tend to go around, hey, we can fill a lot of your unsold inventory. You know, we're seeing ECPMs of $2 to $3, and I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not like we're
Someone
more,
that maybe doesn't know how well you're doing in the open.
right. So really understanding, back to the listening, understanding who we are, knowing where we're headed in terms of if you can either help us in the programmatic direct space and where we're headed domestically, or if you've got, you know, high demand, you know, internationally, then those are things.
Those are needs.
Those are needs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about how we attach all the great solutions to what's happening on the buy side right now. So related to the teams and how they're lined up right now, are you starting to see some unification in pockets where you can have a conversation about custom sponsorship that includes a programmatic solution, or is it still just parallel trains running really hard and sometimes you don't even know, one team doesn't even know that, oh, Titleist wants to buy us over here. Well, we're kind of doing a couple things with Titleist for a long time over here.
Yeah, we see it. It's funny. You see, it's kind of awkward where some of the direct partners, some of them are super savvy. So again, back to Quicken,
Yeah.
But then there's some that put it as now a bullet point where it used to say something new and different. Now it says we want to work with your DNP, and I'm like, do you mean a DNP? We want to, like, they misspell programmatic, and you're like, I don't know that you're like, but it's.
Or they're working too fast, or maybe they don't get it yet. Yeah,
I'm glad that they're wanting to engage, but so because you see them, they're buying, you know, retargeted. So obviously, you know, some of our endemic partners, some of our corporate partners end up buying on our site, but it's not strategic. And so a lot of it is still parallel. We're trying to merge some of those and start to have those conversations, because I still think that it's still two different parties on the buy side that are executing some of these, and the more that they start to merge on their end, the more, because it's going to help us on move.
A lot of it can relate to the parallels of brand and DR, where you've got brands like MasterCard. I mean, MasterCard, I'm guessing, is not spending 8 figures a year with the PGA Tour globally on a cost per, you know, card, you know, lead gen program.
Right.
There's another KPI there, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but some of the, you know, we can start to focus on some KPIs that surround brand. You know, so like we're working with Moat, we've worked with Sharpdeep, you know, on engagement metrics, and our site tends to skew, especially with the changes we made, really high in terms of like time spent per unit. And so even a brand may not, you know, necessarily care about a click because it's not a DR, but they are going to care about how people are engaging with their brand. And
Likelihood to purchase, all the good brand metrics that have been doing pretty well for digital and others for like 15 years, right?
Right, exactly. So it's just being able to apply actual metrics to brand, whereas back in the day it was just, we got you out there, you know, and so.
Yeah. So how does that then impact the offering? So when you imagine PGA Tour's talking to MasterCard in 12 months, it seems like maybe there are different people doing that. Maybe there's a different type of conversation pulling things together. What's the window when you think all the trains are starting to move on one track and
I would
faster?
hope within the next year. And we want to start pushing it from our side. I think some of it's going to be us pushing from our end and giving incentive to get that connectivity.
Yeah.
So if we have to say, hey, a certain percentage of the spend, let's work out some programmatic, give them some favorable rates off of our high direct, rate card.
Okay.
And start to get them to lean in and start to have them reach across the hall and have those conversations so that so we can, meet in the middle.
Yeah, sounds pretty good. We've got time for a couple of questions. Did we miss anything on this list, or any questions for Raef to follow up on anything we discussed? We covered all of it? People are ready for the breakout sessions.
Yep.
I know. And lunch. I think we're okay then. Look at that. Nailed
There you
it. Please join me. Brian, anything else? Did we want to ask anything else? Are we good?
No, we're good.
We're good. Please join me in thanking Raef.
Cool. Thank you, gentlemen.